Okay, so I do want to welcome Josephine Peruli and Jim Boydston. This is Bold Like a Leopard. We're going to be discussing a project that I call the Mattis File, and that's concerning some fake news that has arisen as a result of the 2016 election aftermath and what people are now calling Russiagate. I kind of call it the Russia myth. Everybody has a different
Well,
name for it. Before we start, and I welcome both of you and anybody else for taking the time to discuss this with me. We've already talked with some other YouTube creators about featuring your accounts, so possibly expect more news on that next week. I do have two program notes next Monday, possibly no time yet, interviewing Gary Byrne of the U.S. Secret Service about reform of the Secret Service, Hillary Clinton, Russia, China, and of course Donald Trump. And then there's on May 15th a discussion with my friend Sun Fei Yang concerning Richard Wolff and Marxist economics. I don't think you guys will like that one, but you're free to tune in.
Actually, just saw the
What?
interview with.
Do you guys like China?
He interviewed Richard Wolff, Jimmy Dore. I just saw that one.
Yeah, I watched that part, but it's actually concerning a different interview with him. But yeah, I've seen him before. In any case, for those of you that do not know, John Mattis is an investigative reporter living in San Diego, California, who claimed publicly as early as election day, November 8th, 2016, to BuzzFeed that he was aware of foreign interference in the election. BuzzFeed appropriately labeled his claims with some caution. Unfortunately, in March 2017, Huffington Post writer Ryan Grimm, also a field reporter for the Young Turks, published a story about troll farms manipulating Bernie Sanders' Facebook groups and gave him the exposure needed to transform this story from a mere allegation to a mainstream assumption. So let's start off with some of his claims. He relies on the fact that he was an administrator of the San Diego Bernie-crats Facebook group that Josephine and Jim are a part of. That's number one. Two, he stated that he informed the Hillary Clinton campaign in September 2016 of something, quote, coursing like a virus through the Facebook page that he helped administer. So this was in reference to new users attempting to join that he saw as foreign infiltrators. This is notwithstanding that this was a group and not a page. There's a difference. And as an administrator of either a group or a page, he had the authority to either block users or delete posts.
and if I may add, Josephine was an actual administrator on that page.
I was the admin of the San Diego for Bernie Sanders 2016 Facebook group page, and so was Crystal Coleman and Sharon Wyndham. The three of us basically in that page allowed people to join, people who shouldn't have been in there. We tried to screen them as best we could. We had trouble with people that infiltrated our group. Those were the correct the record trolls. We did have some porn that was posted, which we removed immediately as soon as someone tagged us. I left being an admin on that page and started the Bernie Sanders community page, but I believe Sharon Wyndham is still on, and I know for certain that Chris Coleman is the admin. John Mattis was never an admin. He did say that to gain credibility. And then afterwards, much afterwards, when it just, everybody under the sun covered his story, he retracted that he was an admin. But the earlier articles did indicate how he can add and delete people. Straight lie. He never, ever was an admin.
So then there was one other claim that he made. So remember, he did say that he informed the Clinton campaign. So that I want to make clear, based on the Politico article where he was featured, it was a super PAC. It wasn't the Clinton campaign. However, a final thing that he claims is that the alleged infiltration had a tangible effect on the voting choices of Bernie Sanders' grassroots supporters. Okay, so we'll be discussing all of those claims. We'll be discussing more of that today. beyond just John Mattis, because I think, frankly, that there seems to be a pattern here that is much larger than him of people making similar claims. So here's some questions that I think I have, and I think you guys probably would be able to help us decipher. Was John Mattis a good faith volunteer and supporter of Senator Sanders' campaign, whether formally or informally? Why is it that his account has been featured by so many publications and organizing groups to the exclusion of those that dispute his story? Why is a self-declared Bernie Sanders supporter like Mattis openly admitting to corresponding with a flagrantly hostile political operation associated with Hillary Clinton? Finally, we will seek to address the issue of whether Mattis operations are being used in similar local election efforts to discourage voting for progressive alternative candidates. So here's my first questions for you guys, because I've talked enough. So let's go back to the DNC convention, because both of you were, and you still have the sign behind you with the TPP, which I remember, and also I love how you modified that sign.
We weren't allowed to bring our own signs. They forced us to use their signs, and so we took markers and fixed the signs that they gave us, and this one was appropriate.
And then we can thank the Illinois Bernie delegation for supplying us with those no TPP signs, which were made of soft, glossy paper. That way we could fold them up and carry them in. And they produced about 2,000 of those for us.
So how about, like, in broader, in more general terms, could you describe the way you were treated at the convention by your state party, the DNC and venue staff, as well as fellow delegates for the Hillary Clinton campaign?
We were treated like we were scum, like we didn't belong there. They were disgusted with us even being there. They were actually violent towards Jim, and I don't know how he controlled himself, frankly. He could have knocked the girl behind him into next week, but she kept hitting Jim with her sign. I've seen them yelling, pushing, shoving, splashing water or whatever drinks at Bernie Sanders delegates. They tried to get rid of that one girl, accused her of fighting. She stepped out, and a Hillary person came and took her seat. She had her Bernie sign on the seat. The girl next to her said, "Hey, this seat is taken." He took the Bernie sign, ripped it up, threw it on the floor, and then took her place. When she came back, she said, "Hey, this is my seat." They were having words. They almost threw her out because of that. He was the one who stole her spot. That's so many things. I kind of blocked it out because really, seriously, it was like PTSD going through that. It was like the Truman Show. It was fake. It was orchestrated. It was staged. They only let the Hillary people in front where the cameras were. This way, we were relegated to the back of the bus, let's say.
And it was funny, prior to the convention, there were some statements from the establishment that were making references to party unity. And
so
the
fake.
only statement that any of us heard that would be anything related to party unity was when somebody would wag their finger at us and say, "You will fall into line." That was it.
So it wasn't like a cute marketing and networking event for everybody to enjoy?
Oh, gosh. Quite the opposite. The best part for me, I can't speak for others, but the best part for me is when we walked out.
Yes.
That was very liberating. On
Tuesday of the convention, when we had our one roll call vote, and Bernie was, a lot of us believe Bernie was forced to concede, and he made the concession, and then Martha Fudge, the convention chair, acknowledged it as an acclamation. In other words, our votes were just thrown away. And at that point, the majority of us in the Sanders delegation walked out.
I think that's when they got seat fillers.
And
there was an ad placed in Craigslist for people to sit at the convention and get paid even. I think they were going to pay them to sit at the convention to fill the seats because half of it was empty. I mean, we walked out.
Yeah, $50 a night for 700 actors to take our seats. But it was funny. After the walkout, the next day, I believe it was CNN, posted a story about it and said approximately 200 Sanders delegates walked out. It was more like 1,100 out of the just shy of 1,900 delegates. The vast majority of our delegation left.
We marched out of there chanting, "This is what democracy looks like."
So you've already partially answered question 2, but I'll just ask the whole question because I can't. Otherwise, it'll be completely incoherent. But when attending a convention in Philadelphia, was there pressure on the part of your opponents to stifle your objections? So you've already answered that. And by contrast, was there pressure from some of the grassroots activists who were more Bernie people to boycott the event?
I think the only pressure that we got to boycott was when we were asked if we wanted to join and everybody walking out of there. That was pretty much it. We were obviously all in agreement that we should walk out.
Okay, so let's move into the issues here with Mattis himself. Now, John Mattis, I do have this article here where we can, I don't know if you guys can see the screen. I can screen share for a second if you want.
Sure.
1 second. If you guys can see that. This is you guys, both of you.
Well, then.
And John Mattis, for those of you that don't know, appears in this photo here.
I hate that he's in that photo with me.
Well, but this is I guess it's archaeological evidence of what, I mean, the fact is that he did appear at certain events. And
he did.
And we're trying to establish exactly what his role was, if at all, in this campaign. So please tell us once again, either one of or both of you, when did John Mattis first raise the issue of supposed infiltration of your Facebook group, San Diego Berniecrats, by foreign trolls? Did he provide evidence at the time to substantiate the claims?
I'm sorry. I think that I found out about this when Jim and I were tagged when we were on the Rachel Maddow show.
So that was in April 2017, if I'm not mistaken, right?
You know, and he had dinner the week before with Sharon Wyndham, who is the other admin. They had dinner together, and he never, ever mentioned he's investigating this and he's going to take it to the meeting. Nothing. We found out about when we were attacked.
Now, my attack by the Rachel Maddow show was on March 21st, 2017. Now, prior to that, there were articles that came out about the tsunami and all this other stuff of infiltration. And prior to that, we also tried to confront him online about his allegations of being an admin and things like that. I believe I shared those posts with you. So it was early in 2017 when it really started coming out. Now, back to around the time of the California primary, when it became fairly evident that Bernie was going down, he started a little bit of the Russia narrative in a different regard, and he was also telling us all to support Hillary.
The vote blew no matter who came out. Yeah.
Yes.
We can't post anything that about Hillary's policies or anything that she did. We gotta help Hillary win because Trump. And of course, we heard enough of that at the convention. We were pretty much disgusted. We were not going to vote for her by any means at all. Anyway, John Mattis, he did come around to Bernie events that we had, but I don't think. Now, in hindsight, I'm wondering if he's just coming around to spy on us. But at the time, we thought, oh, okay, he's here to help out. But, this was quite a turncoat we had here.
So,
I gave
yeah,
I
go
gave
ahead.
it the nickname Mole.
So yeah, you two believe that he's a mole, and there are indications that of mole-like behavior.
Yeah.
So in the and this is what I'm getting at right now, in the political article by Isaac Dovere, and I have it over here. I think people can see it on screen. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'll just share it with you guys.
Okay.
1 second. So he actually says here, after, and this is plainly visible, he said he never talked to anyone in the Clinton campaign itself, although he believed that the researcher he spoke with at the pro-Clinton American Bridge PAC, that's American Bridge 21st Century, run by David Brock, was tantamount to reaching the campaign. Now, this person is an attorney, and he's an investigative reporter. He should know, as Isaac Dovere said, and to his credit, Isaac Dovere, there's a lot you can say about his reporting from February of this year, where you kind of ask why he believed anything that Mattis said. But he said, what was it? Mattis is adamant that anyone who claims that American Bridge was not tantamount to the Clinton campaign is being naive, though campaign finance laws prohibit interaction between entities such as those. He's talking about super PACs and actual campaigns. So that was, for me personally, the red flag that got me to really question what the hell is going on here. Because it doesn't make sense that such a person would make contact with American Bridge. Did you two know anything of him contacting David Brock during the campaign?
No, I did not know anything about
Yeah,
that.
I didn't know anything about that. However, my intuition suspects that he's probably on David Brock's payroll.
If somebody was to come openly to your group administrators, whether verbally or online, and say that they had a connection to the David Brock campaign, what do you think the reaction would have been among the San Diego Bernie community?
Distrust?
Yes.
So this sort of, I mean, I guess it's confirming my suspicion that this would not have been something that would be consistent with a Bernie Sanders supporter, this type of behavior.
No way.
Okay, so I think we're on the same page.
Especially given all of our experiences with correct the record trolls.
Oh my gosh.
And we know that Brock's behind that as well.
Yes, that was funded by David Brock.
It would have absolutely been a crash and burn had that been brought up.
Right. Yeah, I think that it was well established that Sanders himself at one point actually criticized Hillary Clinton for any association with David Brock, and he actually used the expression "scum of the earth" to describe him. So,
Nailed it.
yeah. Next. So, for the record, to your knowledge, what was John Mattis' role in the Bernie Sanders local campaign beyond event hosting that we previously heard about? Did he have a role in fundraising or vote canvassing?
I know that he did put a fundraising together with Mike Fowler, who is he was involved in many Democratic clubs, and I think I did mention the name of the PAC, but now it escapes me. Can you remember? They put on a Beers for Bernie event to fundraise, and we have many other events that he attended, but he was limited in what he actually did. The thing that he regularly put on was the viewing parties when we had elections in each state. He put on several of those. He just reserved a room at a bar, and we attended to watch the outcome of the elections in various states. But other than that, he didn't do anything else. Not that I know of. I mean, we saw him, and we were glad there was people that attended to help with the Bernie campaign, but I didn't really see him do much other than those things. And I don't know how much money was raised. I know personally, I checked with the FEC website, and he didn't donate money to Bernie directly. Much Better Choices, which you checked. That's the PAC
That's
that now is involved with the Santa Onofre. But during the primaries, they were trying to raise some money for Bernie.
Well,
And
I think that the Much Better Choices might actually be affiliated in some way with MoveOn.org. So
yes.
yeah. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing as far as his story.
As far as I knew, that was a pact that Mike Thaler and John Mattis had. But in fact, I heard that Mike Thaler and John Mattis had some kind of falling out or separation, parting of ways. So that's all I know about it.
Well, we do have that donation information for John Mattis and for a person we're going to be discussing later. And the fact is, and I'll share the screen with you guys because now only the audience can see it, but there is a John Mattis from Northern California, not related, who donated to Donald Trump. There is a John Mattis who donated to Romney in 2012. There's no evidence that I see that. And I went on a different site. This is for somebody else. Hold on. Yeah, there's evidence that there was, and these are other people. So please don't for the audience, don't go attacking anybody on here, because for one thing, it's other people, not the John Mattis we're talking about, and people with similar names. So we're not asking for any. We're saying explicitly no harassment and no illegal activities, please. But there was a John Mattis that donated to Act Blue, which is a generic Democratic fundraising organization, Act Blue. I used to get their emails because I donated to Tim Canova, but that's a confession on my part. From a I'm not progressive, but I like that guy. I liked him.
Yeah, no, we're thrilled that he decided to run as an independent.
Yes.
So, yeah, I believe that he may have, and this is the next question, he may have had an ulterior motive. And we can't rush to judgment, but I mean, you guys have plenty of anecdotal evidence that he may have been a mole. So here's the next question. Why was Mattis featured in stories such as the Times of San Diego, the one that you appeared in, Josephine? He was never, and Jim, you were also, but you weren't in the same frame as him. He was never apparently a delegate. Do you believe this was in order for him to seek attention?
He claimed that he was a delegate at the 1968 Democratic Convention and had been beaten. When that delegation was thrown out.
1968.
Yes.
So I think he probably would have been 13 years old at the time.
Quite possibly.
That's based on and again, I don't have precise records on him, but it appears that he was born in the years 1950 to 1958. So in Connecticut, but I can only explicitly endorse facts that I have proof of, but there's notices of his family being from Connecticut.
One of the stories that he would tell to persuade people that he was a progressive activist for a long time.
He was not a delegate. He did not even run as a delegate. And as far as the San Diego Progressive Club, I was the secretary. Crystal Coleman was the vice president. Sharon Wyndham was the treasurer. Mike Johnson was the president. John Mattis never even ran for any office for the San Diego Democratic Progressive Club. He seemed to be kind of behind the scenes, and now, of course, looking back, maybe he was just monitoring us. I mean, I have no explanation for his actions.
Yeah, it's all kind of weird and bizarre. And by the way, I did tweet out this stream to some Bernie Sanders supporters in Florida, so hopefully we can get some attention from them. We want more. We want to establish whether this is happening elsewhere. Right. I do. I don't know about you guys, but it's really bizarre, and it affects people's. It serves to delegitimize people in the public discourse, because whether you, I personally I am more on the conservative side, but I believe in the freedom of speech. I believe we don't label people as Russian activists arbitrarily.
I can't even make more clear than right now. We did not have an infiltration of fake news from Macedonia or Russia or anywhere. We had an inundation of correct the record trolls, but we did not have like he made it sound like nothing but the fake news stories on our page. So not true.
Okay, let me see. What's the next one?
So I get the impression that regardless of what you claim on your ideology, civil liberties matter.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. That's why, I mean, look, last week there was this avalanche of crap that was thrown at Dennis Kucinich, who I don't like, but it was bullshit.
Yeah.
It was nonsense. Well, some of it, even the stuff that was true, such as things that he did on behalf of organizations that he was speaking for, they're so minuscule in comparison to comparable political figures that have spoken on behalf of large organizations, and I think you both know who I'm talking about. That it's really it's an insult to the voters' intelligence. And in fact, Kamala Harris took money from the same donor, so nobody criticizes her. And Dennis Kucinich is, in my opinion, they were using the same type of tactics against him, more through the press than through operatives, in order to destroy his campaign, and they succeeded. He was just destroyed yesterday, by the way. He's gone.
Sad.
And I mean, it's kind of a problem when people they're looking for options and they can't get them because people are saying, no, this is in Arabic they say haram. This is forbidden. It's
they're forcing the duopoly on us.
Right.
Yes.
Let me see here. So I think I asked you this question already, so let's forget that one. Okay, so were you aware at any time in early 2017 that Mattis was telling the Huffington Post, BuzzFeed, MSNBC, or any other media outlet that he was an administrator of your group?
Well, when we found out, we even tried to contact those sources to have them retracted or corrected, but they never did.
So BuzzFeed or Huffington Post or...
No,
and Sharon contacted.
Sharon Wyndham.
Yes. The first one I recall seeing was that the share to the Huffington Post in that tsunami article.
I think the first one I saw was Times of San Diego, and then we did some looking around, and the OB Rag covered it.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Local papers, and then before we knew it, it was going like wildfire. Huffington Post, and then Rachel Maddow. You're like, ah.
So in a second, we'll play some audio from the Rachel Maddow thing. I don't know if you guys will be able to hear it, though. I'm sorry, because...
I don't even know.
Yeah.
If it's the March 21st show, I've heard it a few times.
Okay. Let me see here. This one, I don't know why I typed it again. So so that's the end of our scripted questions for myself. So I'm letting you know because Donna Brazil wouldn't have done that. So we're not going to hear Rachel Maddow, the lady from MSNBC, concerning, and this is somebody you're familiar with.
Administrators at a Bernie Sanders Facebook page in San Diego described it like this to Graham and Cherkis at the Huffington Post. Quote,
let me just check if the audience can hear this, though.
Sure.
Okay, so let me just see if it'll be a pause for a couple seconds. We'll see if they can hear it. This is a new system I'm working with, OBS, so it's a little different from the last time I spoke to the two of you.
So it'll be a little bit before we're back on?
Yeah, no, we're still on. It's just I was asking the chat. Here, they said they can hear it. So here we go.
Friending his San Diego Facebook page and sharing links from
so it's playing right now.
Full of anti-Hillary Clinton propaganda. The stories they posted were not the normal complaints. These stories allege that Hillary Clinton had murdered her political opponents and used body doubles. When John Mattis, the administrator on that Bernie site in San Diego, when John Mattis started tracking down the site's domain registrations, the trail led to places like Macedonia and Albania. And it wasn't just San Diego. By
I'll be
mid-May,
right back.
an administrator of a Facebook site for Bernie Sanders supporters in California, Bay Area for Bernie, was setting off her own alert about many, if not all, of the Bernie groups being inundated, quote, with bogus users.
So Josephine, while Jim's out, this screen over here actually features Alita Pierce, who's an administrator of a different Bernie group from Northern California, and
I know
she's
who it is.
right, yeah, and we've corresponded with her, and she's also disputed his story, and I believe that the fact is that they never featured on screen any evidence of what they're talking about.
No way, no.
So let's keep going for
Sane
a couple more
Progressive, they were
minutes.
posting the same warning. At Bernie Sanders is my hero, the administrators there were posting their own version of the warning, basically saying, listen, something is happening here that is not native to our community. They were warning that these bogus postings.
So what Rachel Maddow is featuring on screen now, again, Josephine and Jim can't hear it, but this post over here, I actually looked at it. It wasn't referring to Russian stock accounts. It was referring to just con artists that were trying to raise money, claiming that they were Bernie Sanders supporters.
Yes, exactly. And I can't speak for other Facebook groups how well they were screening. I just know for us, we screen them very, very well.
Were, quote, developed to be appealing to Berners, to Bernie Sanders supporters, but they were not from an American or
In
Bernie
fact, I
supporting
think
point of
we
view.
even posted many times or had it in the description of our page that anyone who wants to donate to Bernie should do it directly.
Yeah, there was probably, every campaign has issues. In fact, there's a congressional campaign in Pennsylvania right now that is having issues with scam artists that I've heard of all week. So
Yeah.
it's pretty common that has nothing to do with Russia. It just has to do with, people trying to rip people
Right.
off.
I don't know why she was trying to intermingle that with the Russia stuff, but
The real Bernie supporters in this country, the people who were, for example, running the Facebook pages.
I get
in
so
support of him by
insulted
and
every
large, they
time
were
I
trying
think
to
about how they
stop
say
this.
that the Bernie supporters were influenced by fake news stories about Hillary. Bernie supporters are extremely intelligent people, and we can figure out for ourselves how bad Hillary is. We didn't need fake news stories for that.
Well, I think if you're asking me, the people who did not want to vote for Hillary Clinton, they didn't need any convincing from sock accounts. They just didn't like her.
No. Yeah.
And for various reasons. Some people because of oil.
As racist as this country is, they picked a black man over her.
Can you say? I don't think I heard you.
When they realized what it was, we see the evidence of that now looking back at it. But even they seem to have realized that their sounding the alarm about this was pretty much futile. People just couldn't hear it. A few days before the election, John Mattis posted on his San Diego Bernie page, quote, to all that.
So did you hear that, Josephine?
I can't hear it, but I see the page that they posted. We tried to contact John directly and confront him, and he never, ever contacted us back. Joanne, Sharon emailed him, texted him. He did not respond.
And you guys probably heard it the first time when you watched this, but Rachel Maddow actually says that John Mattis said on his Facebook page for San Diego Bernie-crats. So she was taking it on faith that it was his page. But
they never bothered to go on Facebook and check and see who the admins were. If they did any kind of investigative journalism, that's an easy one to figure out who really are the admins of the page.
Yeah, it actually took me like 5 minutes to see that it's. First of all, it's not a page; it's a group.
Get news from this page. Be advised that groups from Macedonia have infiltrated this page and other Bernie pages, planting fake hate stories about Hillary. Now, this has been previously reported, discussed.
There she is.
As if
look, it's Rita Repulsa from Power Rangers. So
that foreign influx of sort of noise and vitriol was all commercial traffic. people in foreign countries who didn't really care about the U.S. election, but they were writing all these fake news stories.
And the segment where I got thrown under the bus is about 11:15 in that video.
Just because they wanted the ad revenue they could get from people clicking on their sites, the ad revenue they could get from traffic they could drive to their site no matter what nonsense thing they posted. And certainly there's a commercial element to it. That is definitely some of it. But we now understand much more about how Russian intelligence piggybacks on commercial hacking and commercial trolling efforts. It's part of their MO. It's what Russian intelligence.
So I think we've heard. I mean, this is already in the description if you want, or I'll just put it in the chat. It might be only in my article, so you guys can check out the full segment if you want. And it's basically just scare tactics, and you know, they have some dude with a cat who's really Russian looking, and you know, yeah, maybe it's compelling on screen, but it's absent of any evidence, and you know, I think it is an insult to the intelligence of the viewers. So I will turn now to my article from last month, and I did document. I kind of went full on, you know, what do you call it? Tinfoil hat on this, and really went and looked through his entire history.
Yeah, you did this like an investigative journalist, like a real one.
Right, and you know, it's kind of, and I, you know, people probably should be aware. I mean, I didn't start out trying to be a journalist. I'm basically a troll originally, and not a Russian troll. You know, a local Ohio Dallas Cowboys fan troll. But the thing is, I'm reading through this Politico article, and I started to realize that this guy's story. First of all, the David Brock thing was a red flag, and then I start looking into his history. That John Mattis. So I'll share this on. Well, it is shared on screen with them. So again, you guys aren't going to see me. You're going to see the article. The earliest record of Mattis' political involvement was a term he served on the Madison, Wisconsin Board of Aldermen from 1977 to 1980. I actually called them, and they confirmed that he was on the Board of Supervisors from 1976 to 78 for the county. And so he was serving on the city council and on the county council simultaneously. So this is a former local politician. He also appears to have been studying for his master's degree in communications at University of Wisconsin-Madison at the time. And his thesis, entitled Enhancing the Persuasiveness of Television Advertisements via the Transfer of Residual Arousal from Prior Programming, is available at their library. So this is a person who has studied what I would like to call, you know, corporate propaganda, you know, and you know, it's a legitimate field of study, but I think it's kind of ironic. Then he went to law school at University of Miami, and he passed the Florida bar in 1985. Nowadays, it appears he isn't licensed to practice in the state of California, but he's still licensed to practice in Florida. Then there's the whole thing with him investigating Iran-Contra, and as also the secret army in Vietnam, which, you know, if he did good work on that, you know, good for him. You know, you can't just dump on him all day.
Yes, that was another story that he told us, that the CIA was stalking him while he was doing that.
So then he kind of took like a dip into the minor leagues, and he started doing kind of, you know, local TV reporting. And then there was this hilarious video. Let me see if this is the video where he gets attacked on tape.
Stop the camera right now.
I didn't know him back in the day, but I remember.
Why are you doing this? You didn't have enough with what you wear?
So you have this. This is him. This Syrian woman is bawling him out. And
regarding some real estate scam.
Yeah, and I actually looked it up. I don't think the guy was ever found liable, so who knows?
That's not appropriate.
I don't give a Stop your behavior. Do you like Tijuana or Ensenada? Which one do you like better, huh? I'm going to put you on the other side of the country.
That is really pathetic.
I don't care. Stop this.
That's
Stop
pathetic.
this right now.
Have a nice day.
No, you.
Have a nice day.
Have a nice day, my
Thank you. Bye-bye.
son of a
So then
Stop it!
he's following her to the car. I think to some degree this might be trespassing. So I'm not sure if this is legitimate TV reporting.
Stop.
Call the police.
Yeah, that was kind of just for my gratification because I like seeing like news stories like that. It's kind of funny. So sorry for everybody that thinks that's a little irrelevant, but I thought it was a pretty funny video. But look, the fact is the guy was never the case was never adjudicated. So I don't know what the conclusion is from here. You know, so that's the type of work he was doing from like the late 90s to the mid 2000s, I guess, or the like 2013. He worked for a couple local news organizations, XETV in Tijuana, which is pretty close to where you live, and ABC News. He claimed to be a consultant over there. I called ABC News. They never answered me. They're like, hey, shut up. They're like, we don't care. Fox 6, he lists that on his LinkedIn page. And he doesn't seem to have anything significant that was published since 2009. And then there's the whole timeline of everything concerning Russia. So you see here, I'm not going to go through the whole thing because, we have places to go today. But BuzzFeed, they actually said, as of now, neither Mattis nor BuzzFeed News have unearthed any evidence that links the spammers to a coordinated campaign to suppress Clinton voters. So I know it's rare, but I'll give credit to BuzzFeed for not completely buying into it.
Right.
The New Yorker then published a preview of all this crap from David Remnick, who is kind of more of a neoliberal and a pro-Iraq war journalist. So I'm not sure why Mattis went to him. Huffington Post, that's the most famous one. Were you contacted at any point by Ryan Grimm, either of you?
No,
Never.
So Ryan Grimm of the Young Turks and Huffington Post never contacted anybody from your page apart from John Mattis, to your knowledge?
No.
And did you attempt to contact Ryan Grimm?
I believe Sharon Wyndham did try to contact every single outlet that had these stories to have them retracted or removed or corrected. No response.
So that is Ryan Grimm, who he has this delightful plaid shirt over here. If you want to, I'm actually not a fan of Ryan Grimm, so I'm just saying. I'm not a fan of the Young Turks. But then you have the Inquisitor, which is not exactly, the Lexus of news outlets. It's okay. Then he also lists on, this is all from his page, by the way. He lists Exit, which is an Albanian news aggregator. They're a news aggregator who translated an article from Gazeta Shqiptare, which is a local paper over there. And they even misspelled his name. So he features that. This is a guy complaining about fake news on Bernie sites.
There's some irony right there.
Then there's Raw Story, which is, let's forget. I mean, Raw Story isn't exactly the greatest. Daily Kos blog. So he cites as a news story a blog post from Daily Kos by a person who never posted anything else ever on Daily Kos, an anonymous user. So this is John Mattis. This is the person who is complaining about fake news. Then there's this interesting conversation he had with Ryan Grimm on the air on Vermont Public Radio on March 17th, 2017. And then there's the Rachel Maddow story. And then there's,
Give him the time of day.
What's that?
He went to any outlet that would give him the time
of day. It gets worse. There's ones that are like, I mean, they make some of the ones we've already mentioned a joke. So then there's the San Diego Free Press, which is, it's a local alternative paper. those I guess some of them are kind of stupid, but there's nothing wrong with talking to them. And then the OB Rag, which is from Ocean Bay, California.
Beach.
Ocean Beach. Where is that? Ocean Bay, New Jersey, maybe?
No,
Beach.
Ocean Beach is a community in San Diego.
Okay. Yeah, actually, yeah, I should have just read the sentence. It says Ocean Beach right here. So that's on me. Times of San Diego, which there was both an article and a video of him, just an audio on YouTube of him talking about, all of his big findings of hacking and whatever. Again, no evidence presented.
And that was one of his talks at a Democratic club.
Yeah, he started doing the circuits, going to many Democratic clubs and telling all the people at these Democratic clubs that the Bernie supporters were tricked and they were duped into, believing these fake stories. It's disgusting and insulting. And really, actually, I remember there was a fake story that was circulating, and then NPR covered it, and they tracked it, and it was like some suburb in California, in Los Angeles, I think.
That's right.
That some guy was just circulating fake stories just to, like clickbait to raise money. It wasn't Macedonia or Albania or Russia. It was like right in our backyard in LA.
Yeah, and there's the fact is that he was part of this Hillcrest Indivisible group. So
yeah.
I'd say, from what I can gather, I've never been to San Diego. Hillcrest and Uptown are kind of the trendy bohemian, like gay village parts of San Diego.
Absolutely.
So then, there's obviously a few groups there. I actually looked online. There's a lot of groups there that are indivisible groups. So he was preaching to the choir.
I'm sure you recall that was the post of mine that was Rachel Maddow's backdrop, just showing it was just a simple fact that Indivisible was ultimately funded by George Soros.
That's right. Yeah.
So they are funded by George Soros. Everybody can accept that?
Yes.
Through Priorities USA, yeah.
Okay, so this is, I guess there's a consensus that they're a Soros group. So I actually didn't know that. Thanks for pointing that out.
Help you there.
You're giving ammunition to the other side, Jim. you must conform.
The side that matters is the side of the people.
Yeah. So we have East County Magazine was his next one, which is a local paper. Not anything to be either ashamed or proud of. Probably the type that would stick their printed magazine in your fence or something. Then there's this one, Political Haze, which doesn't exist anymore and was just a Facebook page. So he listed a link to that one. And that include some of the material is just like satire pieces of Donald Trump Jr. peeing himself after it's just rumors of him peeing on himself. So, that's the type of news outlet he considers reliable. Huffington Post again, Ryan Grimm on a different matter of these Albanian fake news sites closing down as if it really matters. Then there's some more publications, U.S. News and World Report, The Guardian and Raw Story, Reverb, which is a pretty biased news source, Rejuvenation Media, and my personal favorite, and I'm getting to the end because Newsweek and New York Times are the last two that you featured him. But The Last Men and Over Men, I actually went and looked this up, and this guy ended up blocking me because I said, he's using a page by a candidate for Congress in New York State, it's just written by like some sort of like 5-year-old. The guy's like, let me see the part where he actually cites Mattis is pretty funny. It says, what's striking are the comments of John Mattis, who was helping run Bernie's outline campaign. I don't know what an outline campaign is, but I think he meant online. a huge wave of fake news stories originating from Eastern Europe, Eastern not capitalized, began washing over the presidential election months earlier at the height of the primary campaign. John Mattis, who was helping run the outline campaign for the Democratic candidate Bernie Sanders from San Diego, said it really took off in March 2016. In a 30-day period, dozens of full-blown sites appeared overnight running full-level production posts. It screamed out to me that something strange was going on, Mattis said. Much of the material was untraceable, but he tracked 40% of the new postings back to Eastern Europe. It says, more Mattis, again, Bernie's online data guy. Okay, this is what this guy says. And John Mattis features this story on his site. Okay, this lastmenandovermen.com. He says, Mattis believes that the aim of the campaign was to damage Clinton, who Vladimir Putin saw as his arch foe. And then after the primaries were over, to minimize the number of Sanders voters. Can you see? I'm sorry, you guys can't see the screen.
How could they be a foe with Hillary when she helped their uranium deal?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
He was writing in real time about things I was seeing happening in August, but I couldn't articulate until September. He said, because the Sanders online campaign was so open, democratic, and relatively unregulated, Mattis says he now realizes we basically set ourselves up to be victims of an international cyber warfare campaign. We were pawns in this, but very effective pawns. So then the guy says, wow, and then he just repeats the last sentence. We set ourselves up to be victims of an international cyber warfare campaign. We were very effective pawns. Yes, because Bernie supporters wanted to believe the worst about Hillary going in. This was a big key to the Trump campaign. Less a get out the vote effort than a don't get out the vote effort. So I bet you guys are flagellating yourselves, feeling guilty right now, Josephine, for not going to vote for.
Not at all. Like I said, and I repeat, she had enough real things about her to make people not want to vote for her.
I hadn't trusted Hillary Clinton since 1993 when she sold out on health care reform.
Well, it's interesting, if we can just pause to speak a little about Hillary Clinton, because I think, I come from a family. My family was mostly Democrats. My mom, God rest her soul, was a Democrat. I think most of her. I mean, she immigrated here, but she was a Democrat for most of her life here. But the reason I started to doubt the Democratic Party was more because of Al Gore and his just blaming Ralph Nader, and it's the same pattern over and over again. And since then, I've just read more and more about the Clintons. And, the thing is, they never want to talk about, they always want to talk about Russia now. They don't want to talk about how they sold out to China in the 90s. And, they sold missile technology in exchange for campaign donations to China in 1996. And nobody ever talks about that. And it really has, if you look at it retrospectively, it has jeopardized our national security in many ways, not just with China. I'm not beating up on China because I hate China. China, I guess, is okay. But China sold weapons to Pakistan from that, and Pakistan sold weapons to Iran. So in many respects, we can play the blame game right now over, whether Iran is to blame or Israel is to blame or America is to blame. The fact is we sold that technology to China. We did. And that's something I think we should all be, a little more circumspect about. Getting back to the whole Mattis issue. So I did look through Ryan Grimm's article, and there's another person who pops up. And I don't know if you guys noticed this name. His name is Matthew Smolin, who also tells a similar story about such campaign rhetoric. And what really caught my eye about that was that I looked through that page, which I'm not gonna show because it would dox people. But Matthew Smolin, who also stated that he was targeting fake news people in Tennessee on the Bernie Sanders campaign, he was only apparently active on that page for 5 days in June of 2016. So this is a person, they're using his testimony in order to, and sorry, I have to share the screen again with you guys because you can't see it. But it says Matthew Smolin, a 34-year-old copy editor and page designer based in Knoxville, Tennessee, noticed an influx of posts linking to fake news as early as January 2016. But the fact is that you don't see any evidence of him commenting on it until June 2016 on that page. So much of it, Smolin noticed, came from the same accounts. Almost all the news he traced went back to Velezh, Macedonia, which Wired magazine has since dubbed the fake news factory to the world. There wasn't a single link he found that went to a pro-Clinton fake news story. None of the fake stories stood out to Smolin. He described the Facebook groups as being in a room filled with blasting televisions. Okay, no, I think that was just a metaphor. So it was hard to pick out the loudest noises. The ultimate goal of this wasn't so much misinformation as distraction from valid info, he concluded. But Smolin had a hard time convincing other Bernie supporters that they were being played. No one cared, Smolin said. At that point, you were Hillary's shill. It was like an echo chamber of anger. Even when pointing out that something like NBCpolitics.org was a fake site, the real site is NBCnews.com/politics, he drew criticism. He was eventually removed as a moderator from one of the pro-Sanders Facebook groups. It's the closest thing I've been to being gaslit in my life, he said. In June, Smolin posted a piece on Medium with the headline, "Dear Bernie supporters, stop sharing posts from dumpster fire websites." And then he urged his fellow Sanders fans to wake up. He says, guys, we have the Medium piece here anyway, so we'll just look at that for a second. And we're kind of running. I do want to leave a little time for audience questions, so people can start putting their questions in the chat. We'll go to the chat in a couple minutes. So he starts just...
This is still more presuming that Bernie supporters are, even if a post gets on these pages that isn't real, it's presuming that Bernie supporters are believing these fake stories and that's why they're not voting for Hillary. A lot of Bernie supporters already made up their mind that they were going to just vote for Bernie and not for Hillary. Bernie or bust was a real thing. A lot of people were never going to vote for her. The only people that were going to vote for her are the vote blue no matter who.
Right, and this person, I went through his posting history, and I'm not going to show it on screen because, we can't go too far here and harass people or harass people that might appear on screen, unlike Rachel Maddow, who put your names on screen. But this guy was in the Huffington Post, so he's already well known. This Matthew Smolin, I didn't find any evidence of him actually interacting with the group members before June 15th, 2016. So by that point, I actually dug further. The Tennessee primary happened in March 2016. So, there was no evidence of him interacting at that point. There's no evidence of him actually posting anything that was Sanders related in the intermediate period between then and the whole fake news thing.
It's like once Bernie lost, the trolls came out force to try to get everybody to vote for Hillary, corral them into voting for her, and trying to do damage control because they know people hate her.
And something that I'm seeing here with these people is they're alleging, or they alleged, that the vast majority of Bernie supporters, at least, were vulnerable and ignorant. When
insulting,
the opposite was the case. I mean, as far as Bernie's primary run was concerned, I saw more people cross ideological lines to unify and support than I've ever seen for any other presidential candidate in my life.
Bernie did cross party lines.
And it seemed to me that Bernie was the truth and the fundamental issues. And to me, that's ultimate awareness. So We're not vulnerable.
We
get it.
We were out on the streets at events just about every weekend, and we registered voters, and we saw a lot of people that were independents, Republicans, Green Party, switch over to register as Democrats to vote for Bernie. And when he lost, they were not going to stick around for her.
And I, for one, couldn't blame them.
She is not a consolation prize. They were going to go back to their original party and vote accordingly.
Yeah, I think that they really don't know the audience that they're talking about. I do know that there were some people who were initially Bernie Sanders supporters that they very rapidly gave in to the Clinton crowd, and it's not to say that not all Bernie Sanders supporters rejected Hillary Clinton, but
the vote no matter who crowd.
There were people who are like John Mattis, if you take him at face value, who would say, well, I wanted to vote for the most progressive candidate, and hypothetically that would be Hillary Clinton. Now, I think
progressive.
So it was so funny for me in the aftermath of it going down in the primaries. I had so many vote blue no matter who's that I had known, a lot of them in real life, kept admonishing me that, well, Bernie is telling us to vote for her. As a delegate, and Josephine can confirm this as well, when we had that mass conference call with Bernie about a week before the convention, he literally said to us, I know that you're not going to vote for her.
Mattis said to you guys?
Sorry? That was Bernie telling us that.
So we do have a question from the audience from Larry Gerke. Let's see here. San Onofre, what is the issue related to Mattis with that? I used to work there, still have a home in Oceanside. So what does that have to do with John Mattis?
What does what have to do with John Mattis?
The San Onofre nuclear reactor?
No, that was Much Better Choices, and it is a PAC, and they were trying to get involved with that because they were trying to, stop, no from existing. And I don't think that John Mattis is still involved with Much Better Choices PAC. He had been involved with Mike Fowler, and I think that was a PAC that they were involved in together, but I think that they parted ways. I don't know the reason why. So I'm not sure now. I don't think that John Mattis is involved in that. I think it's just Mike Fowler with Much Better Choices. But during the primary, Much Better Choices was raising money for Bernie Sanders. And John Mattis initially was involved with Mike Fowler in raising money the years for Bernie when they were trying to do fundraising.
So yeah, from what I gathered, there was an effort to, and excuse me if I'm repeating something you just said, because I was interacting with Larry in the audience. But what happened was that there was an effort to refurbish and help, update the infrastructure at San Onofre nuclear reactor in San Diego, and
they were trying to.
What's that?
Well, the current issue with San Onofre, as a former nuclear worker, I can tell you all about this. The plant was forced to be shut down by the NRC because it was brought to the public's attention by another activist that they had in their second generation a steam generator in the plant. It had been redesigned poorly. And it was a nuclear, it was a radiological hazard. I'll just leave it at that. And so the plant was shut down, and now they're talking about storing the nuclear waste that's in like the spent fuel rods, et cetera, that are in storage pools there, putting them in dry casks and burying them essentially not far from the beach. So the current activist
Ray Lutz,
is
he's involved with that.
right
Citizens Oversight.
is to put a stop to that, because it's I mean, I'll just say Fukushima.
Yeah, so that was a question of passing on the cost to the public of a private organization that was going to rehabilitate or what was it, to maintain San Onofre. That was the big issue over there. That was the campaign that Mattis was talking about.
I don't even know it's him. It was Much Better Choices, and I think it's Mike Fowler. I'm not sure if Matt. His only effort right now is to spread the rumor about Russia trolls on our pages.
Well, we can actually pull up this Much Better Choices. So this is affiliated with MoveOn.org, and it says make utility companies pay for their own mistakes, not us. And wasn't it successful? Sorry if I'm a little distracted, but wasn't it like a successful campaign in the end to get them to pay?
Now we're just trying to deal with the now we're trying to deal with how they're going to store this toxic crap. Also, he wrote an article about yeah, there he is, John Mattis. Well, I guess that makes me think that he must still be involved with Much Better Choices.
Well, I don't think it's that updated though, because actually there's his contact page. I think this is his old. So this is the old petition. So it's an inactive petition. And this is from 2013. So
yeah.
You know.
Okay.
So that's the connection to San Onofre. I think that was Larry that was asking that, and then he got all up in my face because I criticize Abby Martin all the time, but you know that's not related.
Was that 2013 is actually back when, right about the time just before they
were trying to shut it down.
They shut San Onofre down because of the steam generator problem.
Right.
Larry is saying thank you for the answer. Larry is one of our more interactive guests. We also have.
And if you'd like to hear specifics about what went on with San Onofre, feel free to put him in contact with me.
Okay, yeah, I'll ask him offline because I do have his contact. But I think he actually said he worked there for a while, so maybe you guys can chat about that as well.
I was a nuclear mechanical operator on a fast attack submarine in the Navy during the last decade of the Cold War.
No kidding. Yeah, I think he'll be very interested to hear that because he has some stories about that too.
Yeah.
We had a question from Arjun Sinha, who's one of our viewers and also has been on the show from Calcutta. Does Bernie have a shot in 2020?
I would say his only chance with we the people would be if he ran as an independent. If he goes back into being a member of the Democratic side of the duopoly, they're going to shoot him down again, just like they did in 2016.
I think that he won the 2016 election, and
yes.
The election was rigged in just about every state. And the states that he clearly won, the superdelegates made sure that he didn't even win those states. So he won the 2016 election. Could he win the 2020 election? Yes, but they will make sure that he doesn't win it.
Which that kind of goes
back. If he runs as a Democrat, that is my firm belief. And my open question that I even posted on Facebook is I love that Bernie sticks to the issues that matter. And so my question to him, which is a 2 or 3 part question, would be, does democracy matter? And because democracy was stolen when he ran as president, he won. We know he won, and they stole the election from him. So if democracy matters, he should be addressing these issues. He doesn't. How does he expect to fix any of the other issues if we can't even have a true, honest, clean, and fair election?
Yeah, can I put my own reaction to Arjun's question about Bernie Sanders winning? So I would say I think, unfortunately, I can't necessarily agree with your point that he did win in 2016. I think that we'll never know because the problem is that the process was so manipulated and so tainted that it brings the whole concept of the contest into question, whether the contest was in any way fair. So if Hillary Clinton, if hypothetically she would have run a campaign that was of purer conduct, I think it's possible she could have won. But she didn't. She did it as underhandedly as possible. So yes, I think that there will always be a cloud over the 2016 primaries as to who would have actually won between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. And then if he would have proceeded to win the primaries and Hillary Clinton would have had to concede, or if everything else with James Comey, he would have indicted her and she would have had to have withdrawn. Sorry, I'm writing like that idiot from the blog earlier. I'm speaking like him. But
Well,
if he would have been the candidate, I think the campaign would have been totally different. The Trump versus Bernie dynamic would have been a completely different game. And I have no clue what would have happened. It's possible Bernie could have won.
Every poll taken during the primary season showed that Bernie would beat Trump by higher margins than Clinton if she beat him. There were some polls where Clinton lost to Trump, but and Trump lost to Bernie. But another thing about showing, our allegations that Bernie actually won the primaries, there was something that happened at the convention. Like I said, we only had one roll call vote. And that roll call vote was not supposed to include superdelegates, but superdelegates were added, so Clinton won. And there have been stories out that had not the superdelegates been included, Bernie would have won the first roll call vote.
So,
and then we have the proof of absolute election fraud in the state of California. And I may have run this by you before. On June 7th, on the day of the election, the margin was 33%, if I recall correctly. And then by July 8th, when the vote was confirmed, they counted the ballot, the mail-in and absentee ballots and provisional ballots that they hadn't thrown away. The margin went down to 6.5% in a month. And then there is the absolute fact that Secretary of State Alex Padilla threw away 1 million votes.
So we have Larry. He says that he was a nuclear electrical operator on the last of the nuclear-powered guided missile cruisers, which he calls skimmers. Does that mean anything to you? So yeah, you guys would probably have like a lot to trade knowledge about. So I would say now we do have a hostile question. He says, are you willing to take a hostile question?
Sure.
So this is from Jeff Johnson from Kansas, who's a right winger, kind of like me. He says, my one question for Bernie: where was the money coming from to fire off his hypothetical utopian USSA? Would you care to want to answer that one? So
$27.
Okay, so you're saying crowdfunding?
It was totally crowdfunded.
Yeah, his campaign was just it was people power.
If you
he
go
was not getting money. In fact, some hacks tried to give him money, and he gave the money back.
Yeah, I think
he could go on the FEC page. It's all there for him to see. He can do his own research. I think
I do criticize Bernie. I don't agree with one of the reasons I got active in 2016 was because I oppose Obamacare and also I oppose universal health care. But the fact is, when you talk about his policy as far as campaign financing, Bernie Sanders was as consistent as you can get. And the similar thing with Kucinich in the latest election, he was doing his utmost to resist corporate funding. here in Ohio, and Canova down in Florida is doing that as well. Um, I did want to ask you, do you believe that this same type of procedure that the Democrats did to your campaign in 2016 is being done today? Can you point to anything in California happening right now regarding progressive candidates that you know about that are being intimidated in such a manner? There was the recent example, I believe it was in Colorado, that the guy he caught a Democratic congressman on tape and trying to intimidate him to drop out. What are your what's your knowledge about that?
We had a local progressive, and he was activist, and he was a fellow delegate at the convention who was going to run in the district where Duncan Hunter is the current congressman, and he was running as a progressive, and he had joined the Democratic Party because he had to follow their rules as far as that support is concerned. But his every time I had a conversation with him, he would say something about, "Wow, I'm going to get if the way I roll, I'm going to get booted by the party." And then
They were pressuring him.
And then one of our vote blue, no matter who, local alleged progressive Democrats persuaded him to drop out of the race and endorse the local establishment candidate who is absolutely going to lose.
So as bad as that sounds, I guess it's good news for me, but you know, but you know, the point is we're still talking about, you know, intimidation here, and you know, they do it as well on the Republican side. Whenever any of us, you know, I go and I talk a lot, or you know, I write more often than I talk about you know, resisting the big defense spending. You know, I'm against spending, period. That includes defense spending, and you know, and this is not coordinated, but you'll get an avalanche of people saying, "Oh, you're not patriotic." I'm like, no, you have to be smart about spending. You know, it's just common sense. So
You should. Those people who want that kind of spending should have been thrilled with Obama. I mean, he dropped 26,000 bombs the last year he was in office.
right, yeah, President Obama. You had who was the other person who was in his administration? Well, you know, the person I think that was most married to the defense establishment in the Obama administration would probably be either Hillary Clinton or who is that the defense secretary, Leon Panetta, who's a former CIA. I mean, it's
at the Democratic convention, he was an absolute warmonger there. We booed the shit out of him.
right. And look, you know, I do believe, you know, neocons and neoliberals, yes, they are entitled to the same constitutional rights as the three of us, but they're always saying that we don't know what the hell we're talking about. Well, the fact is they put everything under classified, literally everything, even things that have nothing to do with you know, national security, and then they tell you just to write them a blank check.
Right.
Well, that's the thing too. I mean, I've been fully aware that. I mean, let's go back to Dwight Eisenhower. He warned us about the military-industrial complex, and it's all about all of the wars that we've been fighting in recent history. They've all been for the benefit of the military-industrial complex, and all people have to do is follow the money. And even now, with these allegations about Assad gassing his people in Syria, and it's an absolute lie. I mean, we gave the Syrian rebels chemical weapons.
Yeah, it's really a mess. And I wanted to ask you, I think we should wind down. Maybe there will be another question from the audience, but I don't think so. But given the current state of the Russia investigation with Mueller, do you think, has your opinion of President Trump changed? Do you think that he is helping to dispel some of the misinformation from the intelligence community and pull back our commitment to some of these conflicts? Or do you think that it's impossible for the president to do so? Or, third option, do you think he's an active tool of the same people?
That's where I am. I believe he's the chosen establishment tool.
I have no opinion.
Okay, so and then the Mueller investigation itself, would you say that you have any confidence that it will lead to any indictments?
Oh no, I think he's on a witch hunt. This is all for show.
And this is all just to divide we the people more.
So
call it political theater.
We have no evidence sitting somewhere along with the weapons of mass destruction that are that bad.
So I think we'll delve more into that topic next week. 9:30, I've confirmed with Gary Byrne, of the former Secret Service officer. We'll try to see if he has any insight on that aspect of this whole saga, which has nothing to do with Facebook. Yeah, one more question. So did you watch the Zuckerberg hearings? Was there anything that made you laugh?
I haven't watched them. I've been too busy.
I haven't watched them either.
And I from the moment I opened an account on Facebook, I knew that it was a private business and that it was not a venue for free speech or fairness or anything like
or
that.
Private.
So I really don't care. All I know is that Facebook seems to be setting their algorithms to be more divisive. And they're doing that for the benefit of the establishment.
And well, I think that anything that we post on Facebook, of course, is just free for any government to use against us.
Yeah, having spent some time in Facebook jail.
Right. So I think it's a similar experience. I started out on Facebook. Personally, I had the Bold Like a Leopard page, was originally called the Oozing Ruptured Spleen of Liberty, which was kind of it was a play on Bleeding Heart, like just the opposite, kind of like merciless libertarianism. Now I believe more in like a, not using just a proper label for your philosophy, just having a personal philosophy. So then I started doing more of the YouTube stuff. YouTube also censors a lot of people.
Yeah,
oh, absolutely.
We hear from Jimmy Dore. He gets censored. They demonetize.
Well, as far as ideologies are concerned, I really only refer to myself as a truth bomber now. That's all I care about.
Right, and I do. I watch the Jimmy Dore show, and there are certain segments where I don't agree with anything he says, and then there's other segments where he's pointing out things that I think are pretty self-evident that people should pay more attention to. And some people ask me, why do you even listen to progressive news sources? And I think that the lesson from this episode with you guys, the whole Mattis episode, is that you can't be dependent on one ideological stream of news or one country. I watch RT, I'll watch the China TV, I'll watch, once in a while the Mexican TV or Italian, which is the most fun because they're more, they get into real fights over there. It's just useful to kind of aggregate from all over the place.
Other perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me see.
Thank
is there any...
you so much for having us on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're welcome back, and you're welcome to share this with anybody. If anybody would like to share their own similar story. And by the way, speaking of Jimmy Dore, I have reached out to people on his show. I've reached out to him. I've reached out to other progressive commentators. I think it's more important for them to understand this story than to my, rap. Yeah,
we tried to reach out to him also back in the day to no avail. But we appreciate it. Hopefully you can interview Alita, maybe even Sharon Wyndham.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, Crystal has reached out to me as well.
Yeah, she's got a lot going on too. So
So hopefully, I've been in touch with Jamal. He has a nice show that
would be wonderful.
you guys can work it out with him if you want to go on.
Yeah.
And I actually have to go do some work, but thanks again, and God bless you, and have a great rest of your evening.
You too.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Thanks.
Good night.
Ciao.
Bye bye. Adios.